بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد سيد الأولين والآخرين وحبيب رب العالمين أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمد رسول الله. I bear witness that no one deserves to be worshipped except Allah, and that Muhammad is the messenger of Allah, Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. Thereafter, we had mentioned in our previous session Hadithul Jariyah and how the Wahhabiyah claim that it is a proof to say Allah is in the direction of above. But we know this is not true. So today we will go further in discussing or refuting their claim that Allah is above. So the Wahhabiyah, they are not Sunni Muslims. They are not from Ahl Sunnah, even though they claim that they are. They say that Allah exists without a place, but they say, but He's above. So they will explicitly say this, even though it doesn't make sense. They say Allah exists without a place. They will say, we believe that Allah is without a place. They will even say this statement, that Allahu mawjoodun bila makan. But then they will say, but we also believe what Allah revealed in the Quran. I mean, we Ahlul Sunnah, we obviously believe what is in the Quran. But they will say, but we believe what is in the Quran. And what they intend by this is that they believe in the literal meanings, the apparent meanings of those matters that were attributed to Allah in the Quran. So wherever, for example, they see about Allah in the Quran, the word fawq, fa wa qaf, literally means above. Okay? But it can mean other things in different contexts. So they will say, for example, يَخَافُونَ رَبَّهُم مِّن فَوْقِهِمْ. This is an ayah in the Quran. They will say that it literally means that the angels fear Allah, fear their Lord, min fawqihim, literally. They'll say from above them. So they'll say, look, Allah is above. And likewise, they will use other things like this to say, you have to say fawq, you have to say above about Allah. We, Ahlus Sunnati wal Jama'ah, we say that yes, the words that were revealed in the Quran in the Arabic language, we obviously do not deny them. We say, yes, Allah said, يَخَافُونَ رَبَّهُم مِّن فَوْقِهِمْ. Min fawqihim, this was used. Yes, we believe in it. We believe that fawq was used about Allah. But what we do not believe is the literal interpretation of this verse. Likewise, the literal interpretation among the Arabs, people who speak Arabic, it doesn't appear. It's not as apparent because they'll just read the ayah and say, look, you've got to believe in the ayah. So the Wahhabiyah amongst the Arabs, their kufr will not be as apparent to people because to people it just seems like they're reciting the ayah. But in English now, when they translate the meaning that they intend, it becomes very clear. Because they'll say, fawq means above. So they will say, Allah really is above. So if you say to them, no, Allah is without a place, they'll say, yes, Allah is without a place. And we'll say, well, that's because He said, laysa kamithlihi shay. There is nothing like Allah. They will say, yes, Allah is not like the creation at all. So that's why He is without a place. And then they'll say, but He also said that He's above. So He is without a place and not like the creation, but above. And above how? We don't know how. This is what they'll say. They'll say we don't know how. And it's important to remember that they confirm, or rather, they affirm that Allah has a how. Wal-'ayadhu billah. A how, it means for something to be like this or like that. And only the creation are like this or like that. We don't say this about Allah. Allah doesn't have a manner of being like we do. He does not have a manner of being at all. So now what we are going to review today is to show that the saying of the Wahhabis, that Allah is without a place, yet He is above, that this goes against the core principle in the religion, that Allah is not like the creation. So this is a core principle within our religion, that Allah is not like the creation. Why? Because Allah revealed, لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ, and there is absolutely nothing like Allah. So they're trying to juggle between these two matters, between saying Allah is not like the creation, but He said fawq, which they translate as above. So we're going to show now that they contradict this. They contradict believing that Allah is not like the creation by saying they say that Allah is like the creation. So let's see how this likening to the creation occurs. So the mushabbiha, and this is what they are known as, al-mushabbiha, literally the likeners, those that liken Allah to the creation. And this is why they are kuffar. You can also call them al-hashawiyah. So the mushabbiha take the apparent meaning of the narration of Muslim, which is hadithul jariyah, the hadith of the slave girl that we reviewed last week. They take the apparent meaning of this, and by this they become misguided, because the apparent meaning of this hadith is that Allah would be in the sky, and it is not permissible to believe this. And this is kufr, to say Allah is in the sky or above. And they are not saved from being judged as misguided by saying that we take the phrase fis sama to mean that Allah is on top of the arsh. So what does this mean? The Wahhabiyah say Allah revealed Ar-Rahmanu ala al-arsh istawa. And they take this literally to mean that Allah is above the arsh. This is kufr. This is obviously kufr. Then, when they mention the hadith of the slave girl, they take its apparent meaning. Its apparent meaning would be that Allah is in the sky. So, not above the arsh, the sky. Then here they say, no. When we say that He's in the sky, in this hadith, what it means is that He's above the arsh. I mean, so what is being said here is that, look, their first saying is kufr, and their second saying is kufr. So by them saying that, no, we don't mean He's in the sky, He's actually above the arsh. So there are many problems with that. Firstly, both statements are kufr. They take them out of Islam. Secondly, what's important to mention is that the Wahhabiyah have a rule. They say at-ta'wil ta'til. They say that at-ta'wil, to interpret the verses, to give them a non-literal interpretation, they say that this is kufr. They say the verses that have the attributes of Allah within them, they say that you have to take these literally. You've got to take the apparent meaning. Otherwise, they say, if you do not take the apparent meaning, then you will not be considered to be believing in what Allah revealed. Right? So they don't do ta'wil when it comes to the attributes of Allah. But look what they've done here. To save themselves from contradicting themselves, they believe that Allah is above the arsh. And the apparent meaning of the hadith of the slave girl is that Allah is in the sky. So here, this is a text which contains something attributed to Allah. They, by their own definitions, they would say, by their own definitions, they should take this for its apparent meaning. And the apparent meaning becomes contradictory to their own belief. So according to the apparent meaning of this ayah, they would say Allah is above the arsh. And according to the apparent meaning of this hadith, they would have to say Allah is in the sky, which is way below the arsh. So what do they say? They say, no, fis sama, in this hadith, literally, in the sky, it means above the arsh. So what have they done here? They've taken the non-literal meaning. They've interpreted. They've fallen into what they accuse us of. They say, at-ta'weelu ta'til. They say, interpreting the texts in which Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala's attributes have been mentioned. They say this is kufr. It's kufr, they say, to interpret the text. They've just interpreted to support their already kufr belief. And kufr upon kufr. So it doesn't save them to say, no, we don't mean in the sky. We mean it means on the arsh. Well, that's contradictory, firstly. And it's kufr. And you've gone against your own principles. You've gone against your own principles. أَفَتُؤْمِنُونَ بِبَعْضِ الْكِتَابِ وَتَكْفُرُونَ بِبَعْض. Allah revealed this about the Jews, that you believe in some of the book and you deny some of the book. Meaning, it's like one rule for others. You judge as kuffar other people that interpret the text, but when you want, you interpret, and when you want, you don't. That's two-faced. So, because now, by saying that Allah is above the arsh, what have they done? They believe, they say, in the principle of laysa kamithlihi shay', that there is nothing like Allah, that Allah is not like the creation. But by saying that Allah is above the arsh, they have likened Allah to the creation. There are no two ways about it. There are no two ways about it. They would claim, they do claim that, no, this is an aboveness, but only Allah knows how it is. It doesn't mean like, we don't know how it is, but it's an aboveness. It's an aboveness, like above. But we don't know how it is. Now that statement, we don't know how it is, doesn't protect them. Because above is above. Now what they try to do is, they try to say to you, Allah is above because He said it in the Quran. And they play this sympathy card with the people. And they affect a lot of people on social media. They play the sympathy card and say, look, we, and they call themselves the Salaf. They say, we, the Salaf, we believe in what Allah revealed. They'll say, we say about Allah what Allah mentioned about Himself in the Quran. And so they play that card. But what are they actually doing? They're translating the meanings according to their own understandings, and they're saying, look, we only say what Allah said in the Quran. Like to make the actual Muslims look bad. So very wicked and malicious, very, very sly the way that they do it. So they say, look, we are people who, we say what Allah said. And so they'll mention the ayah in Arabic, which is fine. Of course, we believe in the ayah in Arabic. And then they'll give it their own slant and say, see, Allah said above. I say, no, Allah didn't say above. Where? Show me where it says that Allah said above. Above. No. Allah said fawq, or istawa, and so on. So they play this game, وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ تَعَالَى. So we want to confirm today that the Wahhabiyah, and prove that the Wahhabiyah, by saying Allah is above, they actually liken Allah to the creation. They actually go against laysa kamithlihi shay'. And by that, they become like the idol worshippers. The idol worshippers of Mecca, al-mushrikun, who used to construct things with their hands and worship them. But these people, they imagine Allah in the mind. Even if they say, well, it's an aboveness, but we don't know how. It's a hand, but we don't know how. It's a foot, it's a shin, it's a, and so on. And like this, they attributed so many disgusting things to Allah. Like they said, يَضَعُ الْجَبَّارُ فِيهَا قَدَمَهُ, about hell. They said Allah puts His foot in hell. And there's a Wahhabi online, I don't know where he's gone. I don't know, maybe he died. But this Australian, he once was recorded on a video saying that Allah has this amazing, beautiful shin. And then they say, but we don't know how it is. Hey, you said shin. What is shin except bone and with flesh and so on? وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ. So they confirm that Allah resides in a place. And also, so they liken Allah to the creation in this way, even though they say Allah exists without a place. They say that. But they say He is above. So now let's see in which other way, so it's not just one way in which they liken Allah to the creation. Let's see in which other way do they liken Allah to the creation. Above the arsh, which they say Allah is above the arsh, there is a kitab. There is a piece of writing. What is writing except letters, shapes, and sizes, right? So this is writing. So on top of the arsh, there is a piece of writing which says, which was written by the order of Allah. It says, Inna rahmati sabaqat ghadabi, which means that the signs of the mercy of Allah, like the rain and the angels and so on, they are more than the signs of the punishment of Allah. Ghadabullah does not mean the wrath or the anger of Allah. No, this is not correct. Allah is not attributed with emotions. Who created emotions? Allah. Allah created emotions. How would He be attributed with something that He created? So, the manifestations of the mercy of Allah are more numerous than the manifestations of His punishment. Thus, by saying Allah is above, they, the Wahhabiyah, would have confirmed a similarity, a likeness between Allah and this writing. Isn't the writing in a place? Yes. Doesn't the writing have a size? Doesn't the writing have dimensions? Doesn't it have a thickness? Doesn't it have shapes? So in so many ways, by saying Allah is above, and by believing also, which they do, that the writing is above the arsh, they have drawn so many similarities between Allah and between this piece of writing, which is creation. So by this they commit kufr also. Thus, by this, they would have confirmed a similarity between Allah and this writing, as they declared both Allah and that writing to be established above the arsh. And by that they've gone against laysa kamithlihi shay. Even if they want to cry about it and say, no, we still believe in laysa kamithlihi shay. No, but you don't. You say one thing, and then it's like, subhanallah, somebody insulting someone. It's like somebody working in a company and saying, look, we have a code of conduct that we don't swear at people. We don't swear at people. And then when the employees come in on the first day, they have a tantrum. The management has a tantrum and swears at people, and then denies that they're swearing at people because they have a code of conduct. But they swear at people. So in the same way, they say Allah is like the creation by saying that He is above. And they can't play this card of, no, we say what Allah said in the Quran, because this is their interpretation of what Allah mentioned in the Quran. So they confirm a similarity between Allah and that writing, as they have declared both Allah and that writing to be established above the throne. And by that, they have belied what Allah revealed in the Quran in Surah Ash-Shura, Surah 42, Ayah 11. لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ. Didn't Allah reveal that He is wahdahu, la sharika lahu? He has no sharik, no partner. So if you take the apparent meaning of these hadiths, the writing is above the arsh. And if they want to take the apparent meaning of those ayahs attributed to Allah, they would say Allah is above the arsh. So by definition, they have said that Allah is above the arsh and the writing is above the arsh. So these two, Allah and the writing, they are partners in this attribute. They share this attribute. But then they try to pull wool over people's eyes and says, no, but the aboveness of Allah is not like our aboveness. When if you ask, if someone, if they were to explain their belief, they'll say Allah is up. They'll do this, but it's not like our aboveness. They are confused. They are confused. The aforementioned proof is taken in a hadith that was narrated by Ibn Hibban, with the wording that this book, this writing, this piece of writing, sometimes they use the word, in the hadith it's a kitab, but kitab doesn't always mean book as we know it today. It means maktub, a piece of writing. Kitab, i.e. maktub. So about this, the Prophet ﷺ said that this piece of writing is marfu' fawq al-arsh. Marfu' meaning it's raised. It's been raised where? Fawqa, above. Fawq al-arsh. This is the narration of Ibn Hibban. And Al-Bukhari also narrated it. And he said, he narrated, not marfu'un fawq al-arsh, but mawdu'un fawq al-arsh. It was placed. Fawq, above the arsh. The Wahhabiyah then come here and they want to try to save face. So look what they do. They try to wriggle out of so many different things. So we'd say, look, wal-'ayathu billah. You use the word fawq about Allah to mean literally above. And about this piece of writing, it says above, fawq. So you're likening Allah to the creation. They'll say, no, in these hadiths where it says fawq about the writing, it doesn't mean fawq, above. It says fawq, but they say it doesn't mean fawq, above. It means below, which is the complete opposite. So it's true that in the Arabic language, sometimes fawq, above, can mean below. It's true. Like we would say, for example, Allah mentioned in the Quran that Allah gives examples of things so that people will understand better. Allah gives examples of things, compares creation to certain creation, so this would enhance the understanding of people and get the message across. So Allah revealed that Allah may give an example of a mosquito and what is more than a mosquito, what is above a mosquito, meaning what is less than a mosquito. Something as small as a mosquito, and also what is less than that. Allah could give an example of that for the people to understand. But so up to here, someone might say, well, linguistically, they've got a point. Maybe fawq in the hadith means below. So by that piece of writing, it wouldn't be a like to Allah. Does that make sense? So now, someone might say, well, then Ahlul Sunnah, they can't pin this on the Wahhabis, that you said Allah is above. We already believe it's kufr for them to say Allah is above. But to pin this rebuttal of them, or this refutation on them, to say that you said Allah is above and you said you believe that the piece of writing is above. So okay, let's say they said, no, this means below. So the piece of writing is below. What would Ahlul Sunnah say to that? What is it that then we would bring? Would we just say, fine, we agree with that point. We don't believe that Allah is above, but we won't use this as a proof. This is not what we say. We say, I'll explain here. So some people, they took the meaning of fawq, literally above, with regards to the writing, to mean below. But this interpretation is rejected by what? By Ibn Hibban's narration. What did Ibn Hibban say? Ibn Hibban narrated marfu'un fawq al-arsh. Why is that? Because marfu' means raised. To be raised above the arsh. Do you say about something that it's raised below something? You don't. Like if you get this bottle and you put it here, you'd say it's raised above his head. Would you say it's raised below? No. So linguistically in the Arabic language it's clearer. Because it says marfu', it's raised, then it tells you that fawq must mean above and it cannot mean below. So we're back on track. We're back on with this proof that they have likened Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala to the creation. Furthermore, according to this belief of theirs that Allah is above the arsh, it necessitates that Allah would be parallel above the arsh, either having the same size as it, or being bigger than it, or smaller than it. In other words, if they say Allah is above the arsh, this being above necessitates having a size. Because look, if someone says Allah is without a place, which He is, this doesn't necessitate a size, because he's not in a place. But if someone is in a place, like if you're sitting on the right-hand side, okay, you must have a size, because you don't fill the whole room. You're not everywhere, and you're not nowhere. You're somewhere. You occupy a certain space. So you would have a size. So them saying that Allah is above, this necessitates that Allah would be a size. You know, the scholars, they said, لازم المذهب مذهب لازم المذهب مذهب إذا كان بينا. Meaning that if somebody says that Allah is above, then this clearly entails certain things. And the things that it entails, we are allowed to pin those things that are entailed on the person who said this statement. Meaning, someone says Allah is above, right? Then what does that necessitate? It necessitates that Allah is a certain distance from us, which is kufr. It entails that Allah would be in a place, which is limiting Allah and saying that He's weak. Saying that Allah is above means He's in a direction. It would mean He's in a place. It would mean He has a size, a volume, all of which necessitate weakness. So a person didn't say Allah is in a direction. He didn't actually say Allah is in a direction. He didn't actually say Allah is a body or a volume, or that Allah is weak or limited. But his statement, Allah is above, very clearly necessitates all of this. That's what it means. That's what it means. Like if a person said, he is, I don't know, this person is a human being. Okay, this person is a man. So this would necessitate in the norm. This would necessitate that he has a brain. It would necessitate that he has a stomach. Even though a person didn't say he has a stomach. He just said he's a human being. Right? So it's very, 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 very clear. So we can pin this accusation or this charge. We can charge with kufr the one who says Allah is above. Just by him saying that, we can say this is kufr. Because it entails Allah being in a place. It entails Allah having a size, Allah being in a direction, Allah being a body, having a volume. So this is kufr. This is the meaning of the statement of the scholars. Lazimul madhab madhab li sahibi. Because this is what it entails. It's lazim. Lazimul madhab madhabun li sahibihi idha kana bayyinan. If it's very, very clear. And this is very clear. It's very clear. There's nothing in the creation that is in a place except that it has a volume, a size, a distance from it and other things, between it and other things. So, furthermore, according to this belief of theirs, Allah must be either above the arsh, having the same size as it, or being bigger than it or smaller than it. They can't escape that. They can't say, oh, he's above, but we don't know how. No, but this is what being above means. Being in a direction, being smaller than the arsh, bigger than the arsh, or the same size as the arsh. It's got to be one of the three. You can't just leave that in the air. So this would mean, by them saying Allah is above, just by saying that, in the English language, by saying Allah is above, this would mean that He has a size. وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ تَعَالَى. And anything attributed with a size is existing. So look how many things it entails. Anything that has a size, it must have existed after not existing. So it didn't exist, and then it was created. It was given that size. This is saying Allah is weak. Allah was created. وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ. And there is no similarity between the Arsh and Allah, just as there is no similarity between Allah and any of His creation. And Allah is not honored by anything among the creation. Nor does Allah benefit from anything from the creation. What does this mean? It means Allah is attributed with the attributes of perfection. His attributes are perfect. His names are names of perfection. So if somebody says Allah is above the Arsh, and being above is an honor for Allah, then someone would say to that person, وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ, someone could say to that person, well, the Arsh didn't used to exist. So if you're claiming that being above the Arsh is an honor for Allah, what about when the Arsh didn't exist, so Allah was imperfect? So Allah does not benefit from anything in the creation. Allah doesn't need the Arsh. So this is to refute those people that say that Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala is above the Arsh. Just like they're saying Allah needs the Arsh. So we are looking at this from so many different angles. So if sitting on the Arsh, or being above the Arsh, or being established upon the Arsh meant that this honors Allah, brings honor, sharaf to Allah, then this would mean that without the Arsh, Allah would not be honorable. It means that by the creation, Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala has gained perfection. Okay, what about when it wasn't there? So that means, necessitates that it means that Allah was imperfect. وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ. And thus, according to this, and thus Allah would be in need of the Arsh so as to be honored. Allah is greatly clear of needing anything from among His creation. Okay. So the saying of the Mushabbiha, the saying of the Wahhabiyah, that Allah sits on the Arsh, the Wahhabiyah, subhanallah, in recent times they've started to say that He doesn't sit on the Arsh. They've started to say, we don't say that Allah sits on the Arsh. They say, no, what we say is that Allah is above the Arsh. It's still kufr. هذا كفر وذاك كفر. Both are kufr. But do you know why they started to say that Allah is above, and started to hide their saying of sitting? I mean, Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyah, the student of Ibn Taymiyyah, he said that Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, wal-'iyadhu billah, sits on the Arsh, or on the Day of Judgment will sit on the Arsh and leave a gap of 4 fingers for the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam. So that necessitates that Allah would have a size. Anyway, Ibn Taymiyyah said Allah is above the Arsh, that He sits on the Arsh, and He gets heavy in the night. So the angels, they kneel down on their knees because Allah becomes really heavy. Wal-'iyadhu billah. So, but anyway, because of all these things that they were attacked with, and because they were made to look very silly, that okay, if you're saying Allah sits, well, we sit, animals also sit. This must mean that you believe that Allah has an upper part and a bottom part, and a backside. So when they heard all of these things, they've started to soften their tone. They've started to say, no, we believe that He's above. So the saying of the Mushabbiha that Allah sits on the Arsh, or to say that Allah is above the Arsh, this is an insult to Allah. كل من وصف الله تعالى بمعنى من معاني البشر فقد شتم الله. Whoever attributes to Allah an attribute of the creation, then indeed he has sworn at Allah. This is swearing at Allah. To say Allah is in the sky, this is an insult to Allah. And so this is kufr. You swear at Allah, you become a kafir. This is because sitting is among the attributes of the humans. Likewise, the animals, the jinn, and certain insects also sit. And every attribute among the attributes of the creation, if it is ascribed to Allah, it would be an insult to Him. The Hafiz of Hadith, the scholar of fiqh, the linguist also, Muhammad Murtada Zabidi al-Hanafi, al-Ash'ari, and al-Maturidi. He said, and he is the one actually, this Hafiz of Hadith, huge Hafiz. He wrote an explanation to Al-Qamus, which is a huge dictionary. Taj al-Arus, the crown on the head of the bride. This is what he literally called it. Taj al-Arus fi Sharh al-Qamus. And he explained Al-Ghazali's Ihya Ulum al-Din, called Ithaf al-Sadat al-Muttaqeen, and many other things. This scholar, he said in the beginning of this book, his explanation of Ihya, he said, إذا أطلق أهل السنة والجماعة فالمراد الأشاعرة والماتريدية. If it is said أهل السنة والجماعة, then those that are meant by this are the Ash'aris and the Maturidis. And then he listed the linguists that were Ash'aris and Maturidis. Amongst them, and the grammarians, amongst them he mentioned people like Sibawayh, who was one of the first to be known for grammar. Then he mentioned the scholars of hadith. Then he mentioned the scholars of fiqh. Then the scholars of creed. And then the scholars of... and he mentioned all this in his book and said, look, these are Ash'aris and these are Maturidis. What did he say? He said, مَنْ جَعَلَ اللَّهَ تَعَالَى مُقَدَّرًا بِمِقْدَارٍ كَفَرٍ. Whoever deems Allah to be a size commits kufr. And we've said that if a person says Allah is above, just by saying he's above, not meaning in status, yeah, a person might say Allah has the highest status. Yeah. But if a person says Allah is above, and then we have to take it literally or apparently, and says that Allah is above, then this necessitates that Allah has a size, وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ, and that He's in a place and in a direction and has a volume and so on. So Al-Hafiz, this is a person who's memorized 100,000 hadith with their chains. He has the authority to say this is sahih, this is hasan, this is da'if, this is mawdu', this is mutawatir, this is mashhur. He can class these hadiths, unlike most people. He said, Man ja'ala Allah ta'ala muqaddaran, whoever judges Allah to be muqaddar, specified, be miqdar, with an amount or a size, kafar. This person is a kafir. This is because such a person has deemed Allah to have a quantity, an amount, or a volume, and a volume. And possessing volume and quantity is among what necessitates, meaning that if a person says something has a size, then they must also have to believe in such and such. Meaning if they say Allah has a size, then by definition, they would be saying that Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala has, if they say Allah is above, then by definition, this would mean that Allah has a size. Even if they say, no, we don't believe that He has a size. No, but your words, they mean exactly this. So, having a volume or a quantity necessitates being created. Do you understand how? Having a size or a volume necessitates that thing would be created, because it requires something else to have given it that size. Why do we say we are creation? Why are we weak? Because we have attributes of the creation. They had beginnings. We were in need of Allah to specify these attributes, like skin tone. Like each of us, we might have a different skin tone. Why? Because Allah chose that for us. So we were in need of Allah to choose that for us, to specify us with that. To say that Allah has attributes of the creation, this entails that Allah is in need or was in need of one to have given him those attributes. وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ تَعَالَى. And did we intellectually know that such as the sun is created by anything other than reasoning that it has a volume? Meaning, look at the sun. How do we know that the sun is created? Because it has a volume. And we follow the same path. We say that the sun has a volume, a size, a color, a shape, dimensions. It did not choose these for itself. Rather, these were chosen for it. Allah eternally chose them, willed for them to be like this. That's why we know the sun is created. Had Allah had a volume, he would have been similar to the sun. He would have been similar to us in having a volume. And Allah is wahdahu, la sharika lah. He doesn't have any partners. So by saying that he has a volume, then he'd be like the sun, like me, like you, this mic, like this pillow, like all of these things. Had Allah had a volume, he would have been similar to the sun with regards to having a volume. And had Allah been like that, he would not have deserved godhood, just as the sun doesn't deserve to be God. Why? Because it has a volume. Had the sun worshipper demanded of these people who liken Allah to the creation, had the sun worshipper demanded of these people an intellectual proof of Allah being worthy of godhood and the sun not being worthy of godhood, they would have no proof. So imagine one of these people turns up and he says he's a Muslim, but he believes Allah is in the sky. And now if he wants to convince a sun worshipper that Allah is God, intellectually he wants to do that, he won't be able to. How's he going to give his da'wah? What's he going to say? If he says, well, God deserves to be worshipped, or Allah deserves to be worshipped, because the sun worshipper will say, or imagine the sun worshipper knew that in the Quran it says that Allah is not like the creation. And hence that's why he deserves to be worshipped. Imagine this person who likens Allah to the creation comes and says, God is not like the creation, that's why he deserves to be worshipped. But then he says to him, well, but God is above also. The sun worshipper would laugh. Well, what are you talking about? You say he's not like the creation, but he's above? This doesn't make sense. If the sun worshipper says to him, give me an intellectual proof that your God, Allah, deserves to be worshipped, he won't be able to. Because they believe that God is above and has the attributes of the creation, and the sun worshipper believes the same thing. So they wouldn't be able to defeat the sun worshipper in a debate. The most they will be able to say is, Allah said in the Quran, Allahu khaliqu kulli shay. Allah created everything. If they say this to the sun worshipper will say, I don't believe in your book. Give me a proof. Anything that such a person says from the Quran, the sun worshipper will say, I don't believe in your Quran. Why are you giving me things that I don't believe in? Give me something that makes sense to me. Well, what's the Wahhabi going to say? That Allah is without a place but is above? Is he going to say, oh well, I've only got things that don't make sense? How is that going to be the true religion? The sun worshipper says, give me something that makes sense, not from the book. Give me something intellectually, such that anybody who wants to be guided could be guided if they think it through. The Wahhabi, he wouldn't be able to do that because his belief doesn't make sense. Intellectually, it doesn't stack up. So the sun worshipper would say, I do not believe in your book. Give me an intellectual proof that the sun does not deserve godhood. What's he going to say? Oh, the sun has a shape and a size and is in a place. Well, he would say, well, you also say that your God is in the sky. And that necessitates weakness too. So why does your God why is he more deserving of worship than my son, than the sun in the sky? And by this, the mushabbih, the one who likens Allah to the creation, would have been silenced, refuted by the sun worshipper. There is no living thing above the arsh. Rather, what exists above the arsh is a piece of writing in which it is written, Inna rahmati sabaqat ghadabi. The signs of the mercy of Allah, they are greater in number than the signs of the punishment of Allah. Among the signs of the mercy of Allah are the drops, each drop, the drops of rain, the leaves on the trees, and paradise is a sign of the mercy of Allah. Paradise is larger than hell by thousands of times. It's thousands of times bigger than hell. So this writing, being above the arsh, is confirmed in the hadith narrated by Al-Bukhari and An-Nasa'i in his Sunan Al-Kubra, and by others such as Ibn Hibban. And the wording in the narration of Ibn Hibban is لَمَّا خَلَقَ اللَّهُ الْخَلْقِ, when the creation was created in the beginning. كَتَبَ فِي كِتَابٍ يَكْتُبُهُ عَلَى نَفْسِهِ. Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala had written, Allah ordered for it to be written. Now look, if you take this hadith literally, its most apparent meaning, you know what the Wahhabiyah would have to say? They'd have to say it means when Allah created creation, He wrote in a book on Himself. Because it says, يَكْتُبُهُ عَلَى نَفْسِهِ. Literally, the most apparent meaning of يَكْتُبُهُ عَلَى نَفْسِهِ is that He wrote it on Himself. So, but they don't say that. They don't say that. Hypocrisy again. Being two-faced. لما خلق الله الخلق كتب في كتاب يكتبه على نفسه. When Allah created creation, He ordered that it be written. A piece of writing be written. وهو, this piece of writing, is مرفوع فوق العرش. And this writing is above the arsh. What does it say? Inna rahmati taghlibu ghadabi. The signs of the signs of the mercy of Allah are greater in number than the signs of the punishment of Allah. If someone tries to interpret fawq, as we mentioned here above, if they try to interpret it to mean below, then this is not permissible. Then here in the religious texts, this is not permissible, except when it's supported by a confirmed textual or intellectual proof. Now, we say this, Ahlus Sunnah, that you take what is in the Quran by its apparent meaning, this is a rule, unless it goes against a verse in the Quran or a hadith, an authentic hadith, or if it goes against the intellect. Because Allah gifted the intellect to us. Otherwise, why did the Prophet ﷺ mention أَوَّلُ مَا خَلَقَ اللَّهُ الْعَقْلِ? Among the first things that Allah created was the intellect. Allah praised Ibrahim ﷺ for the intellectual proof that he used when he pointed at a star and said, هَذَا رَبِّي, this is my Lord, this is what you want me to worship? And then when it set, he said, لَا أُحِبُّ الْآفِلِينَ. He used an intellectual proof that stars change. They change, they go from better to worse, from bad to good. Their existence fluctuates, time lapses upon them, they change. Allah does not change. And Allah praised this proof, وَتِلْكَ حُجَّتُنَا آتَيْنَاهَا إِبْرَاهِيمَ عَلَى قَوْمِهِ. Allah Ta'ala praised this intellectual proof that Ibrahim used. And Allah revealed in many places in the Quran, أَفَلَا تَعْقِلُونَ. Why don't you use your aqls? Why don't you use your intellect? أَفَلَا يَعْقِلُونَ. Why don't those people use their minds? And so on. So if something in the Quran or the Hadith goes against the intellect, what is obviously against the intellect, meaning if it's apparent meaning, if it goes against what is known by the intellect, then we have to interpret it. We have to interpret it. Those who oppose us in this issue do not have anything from these two, from the textual proofs or the intellectual proofs. And thus they have no proof necessitating a non-literal interpretation. There's nothing in the intellect that says you can't interpret these verses, the verses that they take to say Allah is above the arsh. There's nothing in the intellect that says you can't interpret like we do. We interpret them. There's nothing in the religion that says don't interpret, don't go away from the literal meaning. There's nothing that says that. It's not in a hadith. Even the intellect doesn't say you cannot go against the literal meaning. No, there's nothing that says that. So we can do that. We can do ta'weel. And how would they have such a proof? While some of the scholars even said that the Lawh al-Mahfuz and the guarded tablet, they are above the arsh. So they can't say that it means below. Some of the scholars said that the Lawh al-Mahfuz, the guarded tablet, is above the arsh. And this is because there is no confirmed explicit text that the preserved tablet is definitively above the arsh or below the arsh. Hence, the issue remains according to both possibilities. The possibility that the guarded tablet is above the arsh and the possibility that it is below the arsh. And according to the saying that it is above the arsh, this would make the guarded tablet equivalent to Allah, similar to Allah in being above, like that piece of writing. And according to them, Allah would be above part of the arsh and the tablet would be above the other part of the arsh. And this is likening Allah to the creation. Because the aboveness of something in relation to another is among the attributes of the creation. When you say something is above something, this means that you're comparing two creations together. And we'll stop here, inshallah. Or is it clear what they say and how they take the apparent meanings and so on? All right. Is there any question? Yeah.
What if we say we see and Allah sees?
Yeah, this is an argument they use actually. They say, look, we see and Allah sees. Because, well, they start off like this. They say that Allah has a hand but not like our hands. But we say you can't say that. They say that Allah has eyes not like our eyes. Allah laughs but not like we laugh. Allah is amazed but not like we amaze. When we charge them with kufr and say you can't say that, you're likening Allah to the creation, then they bring this argument up. They say, oh well, don't you say Allah sees? We say yes. We say, see? But then a person who doesn't know, they might say, oh, but it's not like we see. They'll say, look, we say the same thing. Allah has a hand, but not like our hand. So this issue is as follows. Allah attributed himself with seeing in the Quran, right? Seeing, it can have a meaning that is not like the creation. It can actually have that meaning. Sight can be without the eye, without light rays, without eyes. Hearing also, linguistically, can be without ears. Life can be without blood, soul, and you get the picture. Knowledge can be without a brain, without a heart. Power can be without muscles. So in all languages, or in the Arabic language even, and English, you can have sight without the need of an eye. So if we say Allah sees but not like we see, that's correct. Like look, Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala, Musa alayhi salam requested, Rabbi arini anzur ilayk, whilst Musa alayhi salam was alive. He made dua, it's in the Quran, that he said, Ya Allah, allow me to see you. So it was revealed to Musa alayhi salam that Allah will allow this mountain to see Allah. If it withstands, then okay. So the mountain was given the ability to see. It saw Allah and it exploded. Okay, how did the mountain see? With an eye? Did the mountain have eyes? No. So seeing, you can see. To see, you do not need eyes. It doesn't necessitate seeing like the creation. As for hand, its most apparent meaning is only this. You get it? It's only this. Someone says, oh, but it's a metaphorical hand. Okay, does that metaphorical meaning exist in the language? If it does, then fine. Like if to say, it's in God's hands, meaning under Allah's control. We agree with that. Fine, that's metaphorical. But they don't accept metaphorical. They want it to be literal. And what is hand except this? There were some people a few days ago, they were on social media, they were saying, well, look, don't we say about the clock that it has hands? Right? And that's not like our hands. Yeah, but the hands of the clock, why is it called a hand of the clock? Because they're comparing it to a person's hand. That's called tashbih. That's called likening it to us. They say, well, we can say about Allah that He has a face, but not like our face, because look, the clock has a face, and the clock's not like our face, so Allah's face is not like our face. Yeah, but why is that called a clock face? Because it's comparing it to a human. Does that make sense? So saying Allah has a hand, saying Allah has a face, saying Allah has eyes, saying Allah has a shin and a foot, all of these are the Wahhabiyah do say, and then they say, but not like ours. This is false. This statement, it's still kufr. Them saying, but not like our hand or foot, this doesn't save them from kufr. And it's not permissible, it's not correct for them to compare it to say, look, but don't you say Allah sees, but not like we see. We say, yes, but seeing doesn't always have to be with an eye. Even the speech of Allah, the speech doesn't have to be a sound, right? Because you have speech inside you. You talk to yourself sometimes inside yourself. That's not a sound. So all of these attributes, the life of Allah, the knowledge of Allah, the speech of Allah, the sight, the hearing of Allah, Allah attributed it to Himself, and we can say about it, the life, the sight, the hearing, the power of Allah, because it doesn't necessitate being like the creation. As for hands, it can only mean creation. It can only mean this flesh. As for eyes, as they claim, the most apparent meaning is only this. As for saying above only means that. And they will believe that they will say Allah is above the arsh. And if you say, if someone says, below, they'll say, no, above. So they understand the literal meaning. But then they try to mask it. They try to shroud it with, Laysa kamithlihi shay. It's kufr. Does that make sense? So it's actually really clear, but many people who don't learn the religious knowledge, they play this card on them. They give them this. And you can see how many people would fall for it, right? That we say Allah sees, but not like we see. So qad yuqal, and He must have a hand, but not like our hand. Right? It's an insult to Allah. All right. In that case, we'll stop here. Is that clear? Is there anything else? No? Yeah, okay. Let's stop here. Let's say La ilaha illallah and as-salah ala nabi. La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallim. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallim. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم.
Yeah,